Do you think Silent Hill is just a video game, a fictional town created for your entertainment? What if I told you that beneath the layers of marketing and digital design lies a truth so disturbing that it has been systematically erased from public records? The story of Alessa Gillespie isn't just a narrative device. It's a carefully disguised chronicle of events that major corporations, government agencies, and religious organizations have worked tirelessly to keep hidden. Tonight, we uncover the truth. In the autumn of 1969, a small coal mining town in rural West Virginia called Centrallia experienced what official reports described as a minor underground fire. The fire, authorities claimed, started in an abandoned mine shaft and would be extinguished within days. It wasn't. It's still burning today, more than 50 years later. But what those official reports never mentioned was the birth that occurred that same night as smoke began to rise from the cracked earth. A girl named Alessa. Born to Jodie Gillespie, a single mother with connections to a religious sect that had settled in Centrallia decades earlier, Alessa's birth coincided with what locals described as the night the town turned wrong. Hospital records from Centrallia General Hospital, since destroyed in a suspicious fire in 1983, documented unusual complications during Alessa's delivery. The attending physician, Dr. Michael Kaufman, noted that the infant displayed anomalous vital signs and that electronic equipment in the delivery room malfunctioned precisely at 3:33 a.m., the moment of Alessa's first breath. Jodie Gillespie had arrived in Centrallia 3 years earlier, joining what was locally known as the Order, a religious group that had quietly established itself in the town since the early 1900s. Public records show that the Order purchased large tracts of land around Centrallia between 1906 and 1924, focusing particularly on areas above the richest coal seams. Coincidence? The federal investigation into the land purchases was abruptly terminated in 1926. All files related to the case were sealed by executive order and remain classified to this day. The Order wasn't simply another Christian denomination. Former members who have since disappeared described rituals involving elaborate symbols, drawn in specific patterns, ceremonies conducted in a language that linguists have been unable to identify, and a core belief that our world exists as a thin membrane over what they called the true reality. They believed that certain individuals could serve as conduits between these worlds. They called these people vessels, and they had been waiting for Alessa. Throughout her early childhood, Alessa displayed behaviors that concerned teachers at Centrallia Elementary School. School records, recovered from a county storage facility before a pipe burst, destroyed most of the archived documents in 1987, show that Alessa was frequently absent. When she did attend, teachers noted her 1,000-yard stare and tendency to draw the same bizarre symbols repeatedly. Mrs. Midwich, Alessa's first-grade teacher, wrote in her personal journal that the other children avoid her instinctively, like animals sensing a predator. That journal was found in Mrs. Midwich's home after she disappeared without explanation in 1975. By age 7, incidents began occurring around Alessa. A playground spontaneously combusted while she was using it, though she emerged unharmed from the flames. 3 classmates who had been witnessed bullying her were found catatonic in a school bathroom, unable to speak for weeks afterward. When they recovered, none could remember what had happened, but all 3 developed identical night terrors featuring what they described as a woman made of bugs and fire. The local newspaper, the Centrallia Herald, ran a small story about these incidents, describing them as unusual but explicable events linked to faulty wiring and possible carbon monoxide poisoning from the underground fire. The journalist who wrote that story, James Sunderland, later attempted to publish a more detailed investigation. His work was never printed. His editor claimed Sunderland had taken an unexpected leave of absence. His apartment was found empty, with half-eaten food still on the table. He hasn't been seen since October 1976. As the underground fire spread beneath Centrallia, so did the Order's influence. County records show that by 1977, members of the religious group held positions in the local police department, hospital administration, and town council. That same year, Alessa, now 8 years old, stopped attending school altogether. Neighbors reported seeing Alessa Gillespie bringing robed figures to their home at odd hours. Some claimed to hear chanting, others described screams. Lisa Garland, a nurse at Centrallia General Hospital, filed a report with Child Protective Services in February 1977, documenting burns and unusual markings on Alessa's body during a routine checkup. That report vanished from county records. 2 weeks later, Garland withdrew her complaint, citing a misunderstanding. Former colleagues described her as suddenly different, like she was there, but not really there. Garland died in what was ruled an accidental overdose of hospital medications in December of that year. On November 1st, 1977, the Gillespie house caught fire. Official reports stated that Dahlia escaped, but Alessa was trapped inside. Her body was never recovered. The fire department's initial assessment cited ritual candles as the likely cause, but the final report changed this to faulty electrical wiring. The fire chief who oversaw the investigation retired suddenly 1 month later and moved out of state, leaving no forwarding address. This is where the official story of Alessa Gillespie ends. A tragic childhood followed by a tragic death. Case closed. Except it wasn't. 3 months after the fire, patients at Alcamilla Hospital, a private medical facility on the outskirts of Centrallia, with documented financial ties to the order, reported hearing a child's screams coming from a guarded basement room that did not appear on any hospital floor plans. An orderly who investigated was found the next morning in a utility closet, his eyes gouged out, repeatedly muttering, "She's still burning," until his death 2 days later. Dr. Michael Kaufman, the same physician who had delivered Alessa, became the hospital's director in early 1978. Under his supervision, an entire wing of the hospital was restricted to authorized personnel only. Power consumption records obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request show that this wing used more electricity than the rest of the hospital combined, with usage spikes occurring precisely every 33 days. Meanwhile, the underground fire beneath Centrallia continued to spread. Sinkholes began opening in roads, toxic gases seeped from cracks in the earth. The official explanation was environmental, an unstoppable geological disaster. But former order members, speaking on condition of anonymity before their subsequent disappearances, claimed the fire was her pain made manifest and the physical expression of the burning girl. By 1980, half of Centralia's population had evacuated. Those who remained reported increasing anomalies, electronic devices capturing voices that weren't there, pets refusing to enter certain areas, watches and clocks stopping at 3:33 regardless of AM or PM, and most disturbing, shared nightmares of a girl whose skin was constantly burning but never consumed. In 1981, nearly 4 years after Alessa's supposed death, a woman named Jodie Mason checked into a motel 20 miles from Centrallia. With her was a girl of approximately 11 years old who matched Alessa's description. Motel owner Travis Grady reported that the child never spoke and seemed to be in constant pain. He also noted that although it was November, ice formed on the inside of their room's windows, while frost covered their doorknob even on relatively warm days. 3 days after their arrival, Mason approached Grady in a state of panic, saying only, "They found us." Security footage, which mysteriously degraded to static after being collected as evidence, showed Mason and the girl leaving at 3:33 a.m. In their room, authorities found hundreds of drawings on the walls, all depicting the same symbol that Alessa had drawn throughout her childhood. The symbols had been drawn in what forensic analysis confirmed was human blood, though the blood type matched no known classification. Less than a week later, Jodie Mason was found dead in an apparent suicide, her body discovered in the burned-out remains of a church 40 miles from Centrallia. The girl was nowhere to be found. Mason's autopsy revealed unusual anatomical anomalies, including evidence that her internal organs had been subjected to extreme heat despite no external burn marks. The coroner who performed the autopsy requested a secondary examination by federal experts. Before this could occur, the morgue experienced a catastrophic electrical fire. Mason's body was completely destroyed, along with all tissue samples and documentation. By 1983, the U.S. government began the official evacuation of Centrallia, citing the unstoppable underground fire as the reason. Most residents accepted relocation offers. Those who refused, primarily members of the order, were eventually forced out by eminent domain rulings in 1992. Officially, Centrallia became a ghost town with only the underground fire as its resident. But that's not where the story ends. It's where it transforms. In 1998, a Japanese video game developer named Keiichiro Toyama created a horror game called Silent Hill. The game featured a fictional town built over coal mines, consumed by a mysterious fog, and existing in two overlapping realities. At its center was the story of a burned girl named Alessa, tormented by a religious cult. When asked about his inspiration in interviews, Toyama cited various horror films and urban legends. What he never mentioned was his unexplained 3-week visit to Pennsylvania in 1996, during which credit card records show he stayed at a motel just 15 miles from the abandoned Centrallia. Former employees at Konami, speaking anonymously, claimed that Toyama returned from this trip with a notebook full of sketches and story elements he insisted had to be included in the game. These same employees noted that unusual accidents plagued the game's development, developers experiencing night terrors, mysterious equipment failures, and at least 3 cases of temporary blindness among graphic artists working specifically on Alessa's character design. The Silent Hill series became a massive commercial success, spawning multiple sequels and films. Millions of players experienced Alessa's story as fiction, never realizing they were witnessing a carefully disguised documentation of real events. The transformation of truth into entertainment represents perhaps the most effective form of concealment, hiding in plain sight, dismissed as imagination. In 2008, exactly 30 years after Alessa's disappearance from the hospital, a series of unusual missing persons cases began occurring worldwide. The victims shared only one commonality. All had recently completed playing through the Silent Hill game series. Police investigations found no connections between the disappearances, ruling them as unrelated incidents. What authorities either missed or concealed was that in each victim's home, the same symbol that Alessa drew as a child was found scratched into mirrors or drawn on steamed bathroom glass. Meanwhile, despite government claims that Centrallia was uninhabitable, several urban explorers who ventured into the abandoned town between 2010 and 2015 reported a disturbing consistency in their experiences. Each described encountering a woman in her early 40s with severe burn scars, standing in the ruins of the Gillespie house. When approached, the figure would reportedly smile before disappearing into the smoke that still rises from the ground. All of these witnesses reported identical symptoms following their encounters: chronic nightmares, unexplained burns appearing on their skin during sleep, and the persistent smell of ash that no amount of washing could remove. In 2017, a research team from Miskatonic University attempted to conduct an official investigation of these accounts. Their request for permits was initially approved, then abruptly revoked by federal authorities citing ongoing environmental hazards. 2 members of the team proceeded regardless, entering Centrallia illegally in November of that year. Their equipment, designed to measure electromagnetic fields, temperature fluctuations, and audio anomalies, recorded significant data for exactly 33 minutes before catastrophically failing. The researchers themselves managed to exit the town but exhibited symptoms of severe radiation poisoning, despite radiation detection equipment showing normal levels. Both died within weeks, their internal organs displaying damage consistent with exposure to extreme heat, though their skin remained unburned. Their findings, stored on external hard drives, were seized by unnamed federal agents within hours of their hospitalization. The official cause of death was listed as exposure to toxic gases from the underground fire. The most recent chapter in this ongoing story occurred in 2023, when a comprehensive data breach exposed internal emails from a private security firm contracted by an entity referred to only as the Board. These emails discussed surveillance protocols for individuals who had investigated the Centrallia/Gillespie incident and made reference to reality contamination concerns should the vessel narrative become widely accepted as nonfiction. Within hours of the breach, the files were purged from servers worldwide. The whistleblower who released them was found dead 3 days later, the cause determined to be self-immolation, despite security footage showing them being in a different location at the time of death. Which brings us to now. To you, watching this, you might be wondering why a story so extensively covered up hasn't generated more attention. The answer is both simple and terrifying. Those who investigate too deeply don't remain able to share what they find. The few who have tried have had their work systematically discredited, their evidence destroyed, their voices silenced. But there's another, more disturbing possibility. What if Alessa's story isn't just being hidden? What if it's being contained? Former order documents, partially recovered from the burned ruins of their church in Centrallia, referred repeatedly to the concept of thought as reality and attention as nourishment. In their belief system, to know about certain entities was to feed them, to think about them was to strengthen them, to fear them was to empower them. Consider this: after decades of supposed containment, Alessa's story found its way into millions of homes through a video game. Millions of minds simultaneously engaged with her narrative, believed it to be fiction, but engaged nonetheless. If the Order's beliefs held any truth, what might that collective attention have accomplished? Perhaps that's why those who investigate the real Alessa disappear. Not to keep the truth hidden from the public, but to keep the public hidden from her. Since beginning my research into this story 3 months ago, I've experienced increasingly disturbing phenomena. Electronics malfunction in my presence, smoke detectors activate without cause. My skin feels warm to the touch, even in cold rooms. Last week I woke to find my bathroom mirror covered in condensation, with a childlike handprint pressed into it from the other side. But most troubling are the dreams. Always the same. A hospital corridor that stretches endlessly. A door marked only with a symbol. Behind it, the sound of a child in pain. When I finally open the door, I see her, skin blackened and cracked with molten fire glowing beneath, eyes both pleading and accusatory. She speaks only one sentence: "You're keeping me alive by remembering, and now, by watching this, you're remembering too." The underground fire in Centrallia still burns today. Experts predict it could continue for another 250 years, but fires need fuel. The coal will eventually burn away. Some hungers never stop, some pains never end. Some stories, once known, can't be unknown. If you've made it this far, you might already be experiencing it. That prickling sensation across your skin, the feeling of phantom heat in an otherwise cool room. Don't worry, that's normal. That's just your introduction, your initiation. In the coming nights, if you dream of a hospital corridor, or wake to the smell of smoke when nothing is burning, or notice that your clocks stop at precisely 3:33, don't be alarmed. It just means she knows you know about her now. If you want to stay safe, there's something the Order's texts suggested. Acknowledgement. Leave a comment below saying simply, "I see you, Alessa." It won't stop her awareness of you, but it might redirect her attention to someone who didn't complete this ritual. And if you're especially concerned, sharing this video with others creates more potential focal points, more minds to divide her attention. The truth about Alessa Gillespie isn't just a hidden history. It's an ongoing phenomenon, expanding with each new person who learns her story, who pictures her face, who imagines her pain, including you, right now. Sleep well. And if you smell smoke in the night, it's probably just your imagination. Probably.